Hello everyone, this is Colin once again. I'm making this video, the topic is apostasy in Islam, and I think it's one of the most misunderstood topics that is in Islamic theology and Islamic Sharia law. Now, this is really not a video response directed towards anyone. This is just a video that I'm making because I noticed that people like Ahmad's Quran 3 and some other individuals here on YouTube are still trying to deceive people in thinking that Islam sanctions capital punishment, i.e. death, if one actually leaves Islam. I find this really funny because they really are deceiving their viewers. Now, Ahmad's Quran 3 in particular, he quoted a number of hadiths. He gave no background to the hadiths. He didn't even go into great detail. He just quoted them. And then he quoted Tabari, again, not a very strong source. And one thing I thought was really interesting is people like Ahmad's Quran 3 and others assume that modern-day Muslim scholars are trying to say that apostasy from Islam does not equal death. They think this is some sort of modern phenomenon, and that's what they really tell their viewers. They say, don't believe the modern Muslim scholars because they're not actually following their religion. Well, in this video, I hope to illustrate evidence that I'll be posting in the description section, articles that are written by modern scholars, but they are quoting classical scholars. So I'm here to disprove that this is some sort of modern Muslim apologist or modern Muslim scholar phenomena or denial or something to that effect, which many of the haters here on YouTube try to illustrate. I'm going to prove them all wrong in the next 10 minutes. Now, I'm quoting an article written by Jamal Badawi, who is a Muslim scholar and apologist from the 21st century. And he is I'm quoting his article, and I will provide all the links to it specifically. And I'm going to be reading from his article. And then I'm going to end with the Reliance of the Traveler, which I own, and we'll come to that next bit of evidence in a second here. Now, first off, Jamal Badawi makes it very clear that that there's no conclusive evidence in the Quran to sustain the claim that the apostate should be killed. Okay. So then he goes on, and I'm looking at the particular section of his article, which is called Evidence from Hadith. It says the following: Hadith is defined as the actions, words, and approvals of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. The crucial questions that need to be addressed are the following. Is there any reports of apostasy that took place during the lifetime of the Prophet? What is the degree of authenticity of such reports? If there are such authentic reports, was the Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, in a position to implement and enforce the law? How did the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, deal with such cases, in the form of actions or words? How should the actions and words of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, be interpreted, keeping in mind a number of widely accepted rules, including that no hadith may be interpreted in a way that genuinely contradicts the Quran, or, for that matter, contradicting a more authentic hadith? Following our answers to these questions combined, the first one here is there are few reports alleging that the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, ordering the killing of few apostates who refused to repent. However, all such reports are deemed weak, unauthentic by hadith scholars. For example, the famous scholar Muhammad Shakani, who died in 1839, wrote that there were problems with the isnad, chain of narration, of these reports, and thus they were not considered to be reliable, especially in the serious matters such as capital punishment. None of these reports were narrated by either and far more reliable sources of hadith such as Al-Bukhari and Muslim. More significant is the fact that the case of apostasy was reported in the most authentic book of hadith, Bukhari, reported by more than one reliable chain of narration, stronger isnad. The following includes a translation of the most central hadiths. Jabir ibn Abdullah narrated that a Bedouin pledged allegiance to the Prophet of Allah for Islam, i.e. he accepted Islam. And then the Bedouin got fever, whereupon he said to the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, cancel my pledge. But the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, refused. He, the Bedouin, came to him again, saying, cancel my pledge. But the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, refused. Then the Bedouin left Medina. Allah's apostle said, Medina is like a pair of bellows, furnace, expels its impurities and brightens and clears its good. Some argued that perhaps the man in question wanted to be relieved by his oath, bay'ah, not to leave Medina. This argument lacks any textual or other support. In fact, the wording of this particular hadith clearly indicates that the subject of the oath, bay'ah, was willing to accept Islam. Thus, his request to be relieved from the oath meant that he wanted to leave Islam. The incident took place in Medina, where Muslims were living in an independent Islamic state, where the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, had full authority to implement Sharia law. And it's interesting, so I'll end quote there from that. That was all from Jamal Badawi's article. So what's interesting is that the Prophet didn't have this guy killed. So there is a direct indication that apostasy does not mean capital punishment. Now, continuing on, it mentions that, quoting another hadith, it says, Abdullah narrated that Allah's messenger, peace and blessing be upon him, said, the blood of a Muslim who confesses that there is no God but Allah and that I am his apostle cannot be shed except in 3 cases. In retaliation for murder, a married person who commits adultery, and one who reverts from Islam, apostates, and leaves the Muslim community. That's from Sahih Bukhari. Okay. This hadith has been interpreted in more than one way. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, speaks here of 3 capital crimes, the third of which is committing apostasy and parting with the Muslim community. And merely committing apostasy and parting peacefully with the Muslim community without committing any act of treason justifies the death penalty. Then why did the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, let the man, the first hadith cited above, go unmolested? Why, would that show that parting with the community refers to coupling apostasy with joining the enemies who were at war with Muslims at the time? And then it says, another relevant question is whether the individual apostasy is itself an offense, in Arabic, jarimiyah. And if there were an offense, it would be an offense that goes purely against God. In that case, God would hold the person accountable in the day of judgment, or if it was automatically considered to be a capital offense here on earth, regardless of the particulars of any specific situation. More central here is whether it is coupled with any other punishable offense. Goes on to say that now Dr. Jamal Badawi quotes Dr. Yusuf al-Qaradawi, who is another modern Muslim scholar, and he says that there is a second version of this hadith, which further explains the situation. It's from Aisha, and it's an authentic hadith found in Sunan Abu Dawud, where Aisha expands upon the hadith that I just quoted, that Jamal Badawi quoted. It says, the blood of a Muslim who confesses that none has the right to be worshipped but Allah, and that I am his apostle, cannot be shed except in 3 cases. A married person who commits adultery, he is to be stoned, and a man who went out fighting against God and his messenger, he is to be killed or crucified or exiled from the land, and a man who murders another person, he is to be killed on account of it. So this version is quite similar to al-Bukhari's version, but it expands upon what it means when someone leaves, that they fight against the community. And this goes hand in hand with Surah 5, Ayah 33, which is the punishment of those who wage war against God and his apostle and strive with might and main for mischief through the land is execution, or crucifixion, or cutting off of hands, feet for opposite sides, or exile from the land. This is their disgrace in this world, and heavy punishment is theirs in the hereafter. This goes exactly with what it says about Islam here. And another point is that Umar, who during the caliph of his time, he basically did the following. He says, the notion of apostasy in the time of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, was coupled with animosity against Islam and waging war against it. So one who believed in him, the Prophet, was endeavoring to support him. One who commits apostasy was endeavoring to wage war against him and joins the idolatrous folk. And many classical scholars say this. It's about waging war. And even Umar, Caliph Umar, did not execute apostates. He would talk with them, and if he thought that they were going to rebel against Islam because they made inflammatory statements, or they basically told Umar that they were going to rebel, he would imprison them, he wouldn't kill them. Uthman did the same thing. So I will post these articles for you all to read. Now, with reliance to the traveler, many people will quote Imam Shafi saying that apostates must be executed, but they neglect to look at the context. It's no mistake that Imam Shafi's fatwas in Reliance to the Traveler are in the context. It's right in the middle of talking about defending yourself against aggressing non-Muslims and those who rebel. And he furthermore says that the only people who are allowed to execute or imprison apostates are the caliph. He's the one who's supposed to give the order for this, not just random mercenary Muslims who up and kill an apostate. They're supposed to be put through trial, questioned by the caliph and in a panel that he chooses. This is also according to Imam Shafi. So people take Imam Shafi out of context and Reliance to the Traveler. Why own it? You have to read the whole context of the fatwas, because apostates become non-Muslims, and then they are dealt with as non-Muslims. But if the non-Muslim is a peaceful person, he is not to be molested. But if he wages war against Islam or the community, commits treason, then he is to be dealt with. So I will post other videos to the subject as well, and the articles that I quoted from extensively. Thank you for watching, everyone. Hope this was enlightening. Peace be with you all.